For more on the latest developments in northern Syria, France 24's journalist Wassim Nasr joins me on set. Hi, Wassim. So you met the leader of HTS last year, didn't you? Who are those rebels and what's happening in northern Syria?
Well, actually, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, it's an agglomeration of many groups. Julani, who I met, indeed, was the head of the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. But they left Al-Qaeda, they denounced Al-Qaeda in 2016, and they even fight Al-Qaeda. They even killed the fourth caliph of the Islamic State who was hiding in Idlib. And when I spoke to them, when I spoke to him and to others, they told me we denounce global jihad. We are concentrating on bringing our people back to the homes and on fighting the regime of Assad, and Iran added Russia. So the goals are in Syria. And so what happened on Wednesday, it's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but also other rebel groups put up a fight and made this gave this major blow to the Syrian army, but not only the Syrian army, to Shia militias and to Hezbollah, who is posted in those areas. All we see in blue here are the advancements since Wednesday and the takeover of Aleppo, as you see, and Maharat Naman. Even this map is obsolete now, because in the latest hours they even advanced toward Hama and they took the airport of Queris and many other major military hubs and towns in those areas. And we have to see, we're going to look at the footage. We see for the first time they entered Aleppo at Saadallah Jabari Square here that we see, and we saw them this morning in the fortress of Aleppo, the citadel of Aleppo this morning, a historic site. We saw them at the al-Assad statue here this morning. It was bombed by Russian planes, as you said earlier. But the most important part of the footage that we got is we saw them, for example, in Sarakib, the town that we saw earlier on the map. We're going to see it here. And what's very notable in this video is that those towns are ghost towns since the takeover of the Syrian army in 2016 with the help of the Iranian IRGC. People never came back. So those people fighting today are fighting to go back to those towns. We have another footage of Maharat Naman, another major town where demonstrations started in 2011 against President Assad at the time. And we see in this footage, it is a ghost town. So this is what's happening. Actually, people are fighting to go back to their own towns. One another major thing that happened this morning, very important, is the opening of the front of Tadif, where we have other factions of the Syrian rebels who entered from another area. So a multi-front fight actually against the Syrian army in Tadif. And we saw the Kurdish YPG, we have also footage, take the airport of Aleppo. When the Syrian army left, the Kurds went in, and the latest information that we also have footage of the Kurds in the airport of Aleppo. Here it is, and the latest information that I got a few hours ago, it's that the Kurds left and the Syrian rebels entered without a fight into the airport of Aleppo.
So it seems like is this a ragtag coalition of different factions of opposition, or do they have a central sort of command center? I mean, could you explain to us what was behind this recent advance, sort of lightning speed, really, and what's behind their surprise assault?
This assault was prepared since years. And the hardest part of it is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is in command and control. They use, for example, explosive drones. We have footage how it began on Wednesday with drones that they developed themselves. Here we see. And we also saw them using small drones, as we see in Ukraine, remembering that it all started in Syria in 2014, the use of drones. And here it is against a Syrian army tank. And HTS also issued a footage for the first time showing their drone capacity.
Presumably much more advanced than during the Civil War.
Exactly, because they have the human resources to make them better. And here it is. And that made a big difference on the ground. We have also another footage of their special forces of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and the armored vehicles that they developed also in the town of Sarakib. We'll see it during the fight for the town of Sarakib. And here it is. And what you see is homemade. They made it themselves, and they prepared for this fight. And very important things too is that the population is going back to their towns on one hand. On the other hand, Julani addressed the population of Aleppo, telling them, "Stay, don't leave. We're not against you." And the person in charge of minorities and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham addressed the Christian, for example, telling them, "Stay where you are. You have the same treatments as the Christians in Aleppo," which I visited too, who still have their churches, still have their towns. So they reassured the local population, which helped them also in making this huge contest that quick without any resistance, actually.
So sort of capitalizing on people's frustration with the regime at the same time as trying to take control of more territory.
Exactly, and it happened now. People ask why now, actually. Because we're going to see footage of Russians bombing the town of Ariha at night on the 23rd of November. And this kind of bombing is ongoing since 8 years. You know, with drones, with fighters, with the artillery against the people who are found refuge in Idlib. So those people were putting pressure on Hayat al-Sham to put up the fight. And myself, I filmed the footage in the camp of Atme, where you're gonna see you have more than 1.5 million displaced people. We're not talking about refugees. I made a mistake. There are Syrians who are displaced into this area, and they were putting pressure on HTS to take them back to their own towns. And another factor is that the Russians that used to have 40 fighter planes in Syria in 2015, today have a few special forces. One of them died here, a drone operator, and they have less than 10 airplanes based in Syria. So they want to help. They hit this. They want to help the Syrian regime, and they hit. We have footage of hitting them this morning, the town of Idlib, but they don't have results because they have very few forces because of the war in Ukraine, the lack of ammunition. And the most important also part of the story is that Israel hit Hezbollah very hard and Shia militias very hard, meaning that they weakened them, and HTS saw an opportunity, and this is why they waited for signing the ceasefire, and they didn't put up the fight during the war, for not them to be accused of helping Israel.
So they really strategically began on the day that the ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel went into effect.
Because they knew that the opportunity will close very quickly if Hezbollah and Shia militias take their breath again. And so they used this opportunity to make this attack, which explains also the timing of the attack. We have footage also of Syrian rebels tearing down this photo of Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Quds force of the IRGC. Why? Because Qasem Soleimani was heading the forces of the Syrian regime when they took back Aleppo in 2016. So they have a long blood debt with the Iranians, and this is why it happened now, because the Iranians are very weak and not strong enough to keep upholding the Syrian regime.